Hey guys, this is Jeff Conti, your YouTube knife mentor. My previous video was about designing a knife, and of course we did quite a bit of information writing down and making some decisions. So now I'm moving on to the next phase. So right off the bat, one of the things I decided was I'm going to just start with one of my other knife handle designs. I like it really well. I suspect it'll work really well. If for whatever reason I either decide I don't like it, or if after the first one I decide that it doesn't do as well as I thought, then I'll change it. That's the beauty of being a knife maker, right? You get to change things if you want to. So this is obviously going to be a design with a prototype, and if the prototype works out, then good for me. So this is the Achilles knife handle. One of the things I want you to notice about this knife blade is how thin that edge is. Look at that edge. That's a beauty, let me tell you. It cuts really nice. But also look at the top. The top is super thin, right? This knife is made for cutting and stabbing and slicing and, you know, tactical stuff. When you're in a combat situation or if you're in a fight, you want something to kill another guy with. This is going to be the knife, right? It's got a good sharp edge. It's made out of really good steel. It'll hold up really well. It's tough, but it's going to cut like crazy. I don't know if you can see very well because of this armor black Cerakote, but it's got a wide false edge on it, and that false edge takes a lot of the beef out of that point. So this blade itself will not work for a bush knife. So I'm going to use the handle, toss the blade. So I decided to go ahead and stick with my 2-inch wide stock and a 5-inch handle, which is what I have on the Achilles. So I decided initially to go with a 6-inch blade. And remember, in my writing things down here, I decided I wanted the false grind to be 1/3 and the rest of the blade 2/3. Well, I got up here and looked at that and decided I don't like it. Well, anybody who knows me, you know form follows function, right? Function is the critical element. I don't care how good your knife looks. If it doesn't work with a damn, it's not going to work. I mean, it's not worth it. It looks good on laying on a countertop for somebody else to go ooh and ah over, but if it doesn't cut the way you want it to, it's not a good knife. That's my opinion. So I'm looking at this and I think, okay, this is going to be way too steep of an angle to be a good penetrator, and I want this knife to be able to penetrate as well as cut, as well as be strong. Over here I called it being pokey. Anyway, I'm going to stick with that. That maybe is going to get into my dictionary. So anyway, I'm getting rid of this. I don't like it. For one thing, I don't think it's the right angle in terms of being a penetrator or pokey. But another thing is I just don't like the looks of it. So I moved on to a different design. Again, keeping the same handle, same length initially. I was starting off with the same edge here, and I thought, you know what, forget that. I brought it up a little bit. So now we're at maybe 6 1/4, 6 3/8, and I brought the straight point back a ways, so it's no longer that 2 inches. And I thought, gee, that looks pretty good. I kind of like that. So I thought, well, you know, let me try this. And you notice here, I start off high and I bring her down. That's because the angle of this blade is down in comparison to the handle. I went to this part and I thought, oh, let me try this. I was like, oh, that looks like crap. Anyway, so I got rid of that. What I did was I wound up tracing the previous blade, this one here that I liked. I traced it on here, and then I decided, you know what, I think I'd like to have this blade a little longer. So the reality is this knife now is overall about 12 inches, and I got about 7 inches of blade. And I thought, oh, that's looking pretty good. I'm starting to really appreciate this now. I got a little bit better pokey angle with my grind line, and then and it's longer, So I thought, well, I like that pretty good. So I decided, well, you know, let me cut that out, right? So here is my cutout. But I got all these lines on there now. You know, I got a little bit of an angle from the blade to the handle. I know I'm going to use my saber grind, but it's really hard to see as to whether or not I'm going to like it. So I drew it out on a piece of paper, and boy, it just comes to life when you get some of that busyness out of the way, doesn't it? Whoops, I did this video once before, and I was covering up the microphone, which I probably was again, so I apologize if the audio isn't very good. I am going to buy one of those lapel microphones, but for now, you guys are going to have to suffer a little bit. Anyway, I also decided that, let me push this aside here for a minute. Again, form follows function. But I decided to go with a Loveless style rivet or a Corby rivet, not a pin, right? So if here's your handle, we're looking from the top down, your pin just goes straight through, and it does provide some shear strength, but it doesn't have any compressing force. And when you're thinking in terms of a survival knife where you're going to rely on it for maybe a long period of time, everything needs to be as strong as you can make it, right? So a Loveless rivet is a hex screw that's been rounded off, and so the inside is threaded. So when you put this into a knife, you see that kind of curly cue we got going there? That's kind of what it looks like in the knife, and I did it again here, a little curly cue. You can see that gap because the thread is constantly moving away from you, right? Well, a Corby rivet, it just looks like a solid top. So here is a Loveless rivet. There's a nut on one side, a nut on the other side, and a bolt going straight through, all the way through, right? A Corby rivet, it's solid, but it's got a female on one side and a male on the other side. So you have to have two different size holes going through your scales, and they have to line up with the center of your Corby rivet. It's really a pain in the butt. I don't like it at all. It's just, I don't know. It's not my thing, okay? You guys might like it. Give it a shot. But I'm going with the Loveless rivet. I got them already made in brass and stainless steel. So I'm going to use brass because this is probably going to be, I think I'll make it olive. Olive micarta. With a brass screw. Let me just go ahead and fill this in, right? Which on another knife, I can always change out the scales or the screws. And I'm going to do a brushed finish on the blade. Whenever you're cleaning a knife, especially out in the field, you got sand or whatnot. If you've ever cleaned out a deer, you know that your blade gets just full of fat just from working on opening up and cleaning out the deer, right? And so it's just covered with fat. Well, that's good in terms of being an oil or protecting it from rust, but this is a stainless steel knife anyway. I'm probably going to go with 154 cm or CPM. 154, I haven't decided yet. CPM is just powdered metal. That's why the P, powdered metal versus a piece of bar stock that's, you know, they in their the ladle, they'll add all the components, mix it all up, and then, you know, create bar stock out of it. This has got all the components in, but then they grind it up into a powder, and then they remelt it and make bar stock out of it. So this might be I think it helps to get your components of the steel, like molybdenum and carbon and all that. It gets through the blade a little bit more, a little more better mixed, I guess is a good way to put it. But anyway, I'm diverting. So 154 cm or CPM 154. But I think I'm gonna, instead of a satin finish where my grind lines are going 90 degrees to the axis of my blade, I'm gonna make all of my sanding marks done by hand. And then when I go to clean that fat off my blade from gutting a deer, it'll be much easier to clean off with sand in a creek or something. So that's my logic there. I added the, I already told you I added in the false grind. That'll take a little bit of the weight out of my point. Yeah, so that's everything I got going. I think the next step is for me to put it on steel And when I get done with putting it on steel, if I still like it, I'll keep going. If I don't, I'll make changes to the steel. And if I do that, I'll come back to my paper and I will add the new changes to my paper. So for now, this is Jeff Conte, your YouTube knife mentor, taking you on a ride where I'm working on building a knife from start to finish. We started with all of our details. I drew all these out. I went from A to B to C to, I got rid of C, didn't I? Anyway, so we got B, A, B, 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 C. B. Anyway, I'm just playing with you. So this is my process, and there's my finished knife. I did not, I just want to make sure you know, I did not do all this, you know, 3 days ago or something and then just show you this great design. I actually, everything that you see here, I did today. And so I'm sharing with you all of my steps. It's impossible for me to hold this camera and draw at the same time, so I didn't actually show you my drawing, but I did show you all my process. So there you go. Once again, this is Jeff Conte, your YouTube knife mentor. I want you to go out and have fun making a knife. Bye.